The hallmark of evangelical outlooks is that we shape our views on authorship as much as possible by the testimony of the Scriptures themselves. But nowhere does the book of Samuel, nor any other portion of the Old or New Testaments, identify our author. Our book is anonymous, so we simply can't say with certainty who wrote the book of Samuel. Still, when we look at the content of our book, we can discern at least two important insights about its author. In the first place, we should note that the author of Samuel was a compiler of sources. By this we mean that he didn't sit down and write his book de novo, or entirely from scratch. Rather, he composed his book by skillfully weaving together his own materials and earlier written sources. Now, we need to be careful to avoid the often highly speculative views of critical scholars on these matters. But we know that other biblical historical books, like Kings and Chronicles, frequently cite written records that their authors consulted, and the same was true for our author. At a minimum, 2 Samuel chapter 1, verse 18 refers explicitly to the book or scroll of Yashar as a previously written source. Joshua chapter 10, verse 13 mentions the same source. In addition, the similarities between 2 Samuel chapter 22 and Psalm 18 strongly suggest that our author incorporated a well-known psalm of King David's court into his book. Moreover, the title that introduces 2 Samuel chapter 23 verses 1 through 7 as The Last Words of David indicates that our author drew from pre-existing official records of David's court. These examples indicate that, like a number of other biblical writers, the author of Samuel employed existing written sources as he composed his book. Knowing that our author compiled various sources is important because it affects the interpretation of Samuel in a number of ways. For instance, it helps us understand several literary qualities of the book of Samuel. When we read our book, it's difficult to deny that different passages represent significantly different literary styles. At least some of this stylistic variety probably resulted from our author drawing from different sources. More than this, his use of sources also explains why the storyline or plot of our book often doesn't flow as smoothly as we may like. At times, our book appears quite disjointed. The use of sources also helps us understand why the book repeats similar materials on occasion. Beyond this, our author's reliance on written sources clarifies certain temporal references that appear in our book. On at least 7 occasions, the book of Samuel mentions that certain circumstances continued to be true to this day. As we've seen in other series, this same expression occurs in the books of Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, and Kings. And in some of these instances, such as in 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 8, the expression "to this day" clearly refers to the time of an earlier source, rather than to the time of the book's final composition. For these and similar reasons, as we study the book of Samuel, we must always keep in mind that our author edited and incorporated previously written materials into his book.